Dialectic of Direction and Change, Communication Ethics of an Organizational Change. This inquiry project focuses on the change of leadership and culture in a nonprofit youth-serving organization. The inquiry applies the dialectic of direction and change to the organizational change in leadership and mission. Dialectic can be likened to a survey to which a respondent answers questions on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is always and 5 is never. Depending on a number of factors in terms of feeling towards something, the scale slides. In the case of this inquiry, the dialectic of direction and change is applied on a scale where 1 is forward and 5 is change direction. And the navigation is between staying on course and changing course, a bit or a lot. There are several communicative actions that assist an organization in change. Clarity of direction and courage to change direction are two complementary communicative actions of business and professional communication ethics. Together, direction and change encourage the advancement of both survival and competition within organizations. The union of direction and change protects and promotes the goods of survival and competitiveness. In order for necessary and timely change to be successful, an effective introduction is required, as well as capable leadership, knowledge of the organization's mission, current culture, and the desired culture that will be created through change. Attentive responsiveness, or the ability to be reflective in change and leadership as they pertain to business and professional communication ethics, goes beyond good ethics. It takes on a from-to approach, or a sliding scale approach. It slides from the sole focus of the good of individuals to the promotion of goods in the marketplace. Another communicative action that assists an organization in change is accountability. The what, when, and how of a change impact accountability. Examining and communicating change increases accountability both internally and externally. A public map showcasing the how and why of direction change gives an organization accountability. This map is most important during changes in direction. The goal for an organization is to keep the direction clear and responsive to change. The bottom line for the dialectic of direction and change in business and professional communication ethics within an organization is to keep the direction clear and respond effectively to change. The communication ethics problem for this inquiry examines a change in mission and culture. In 2012, a new CEO president of the youth-serving nonprofit highlighted throughout this inquiry was hired, resulting in a change in culture to which it has seemed hard for members of the organization to adjust. The new CEO strategized to realign the organization from its strictly mission-minded vision and operations toward a data-driven vision and operations. As a result, the evidence that described the organization's work shifted from feel-good narratives to data-driven, measurable outcomes. The shift created a disconnect between how the staff team interpret the mission and create meaning in their workplace and their work. A review of the literature explores change in culture according to communication ethics theory, specifically through the lenses of dialogic ethic in business and professional communication and organizational change. This review of literature highlights the gap in literature pertaining to the challenge of a changing culture according to communication ethics. Several themes emerged throughout the literature. Values were the first theme to emerge in the literature review. The values of an organization are perpetuated within the communication of an organization and reside in the overall culture. Consider the influences on the values within an organization as a whole, as well as the individuals within the organization experiencing a culture change. Valuing good remains an important factor in change initiative, especially as goods influence change at the organizational level. However, values are extended beyond individuals to the organization as a whole. Another theme to emerge is assumptions of culture. Cultural inclinations are well entrenched for good or bad. It takes years to alter how people think, feel, and behave, and even then the differences may not be meaningful. And cultures do evolve over time, sometimes slipping backwards, sometimes progressing. And the best you can do is work with and within them rather than fight them. The culturally entrenched values of an organization are difficult to change. Not only are they difficult to change, they are difficult to evaluate. People carry with them narratives of change and culture which ultimately influence overall culture change. These narratives of change are embedded in an organization's history, but they may be influenced by the values or goods carried with individuals and the collective values or goods exhibited by everyone in the organization. Dynamics of change is yet another theme in the literature review. Dynamics of change in culture. The authors identify change as dynamic and continuous, which suggests a need to diversify the models of change. The leadership required to initiate and/or work through organizational change must be dynamic. Leadership emerges, shifts, changes, and flows around organizations as leaders and others engage in everyday activities, interpret the meaning and consequences of prior actions, and engage in further actions. Change and the communication of the change are both dynamic processes. Finally, organizational change and communication emerged as a theme. Organizational change and the communication required as a result are integral parts of one and the other. Communication is seen as an integral part of every organizational action and cannot be seen as an isolated function. Most, if not all, staff members must have communication competence. Organizations must constantly assess their communication competence and examine how existing communication systems are either advantageous or detrimental to an organization's strategy and performance. In an organizational change, the leadership and communication strategies have to change. The Dialectic of Ethics in Business and Professional Communication is the methodology chosen for this inquiry. This methodology was selected because it highlights and explores the question of why of both direction and change. In answering this question, an organization explores change according to the values of individuals and the organization, communicates the necessity of change while considering the existing culture and desired culture, and course corrects as necessary. The Dialectic of Ethic in Business and Professional Communication question and answer methodology allows for a mindful approach to observation and inquiry into a culture change from an organizational change perspective, specifically for an organization as the CEO attempts to negotiate and change culture from mission only to data-driven outcomes. The data being analyzed appeared in the context of the annual retreat for the nonprofit organization. Specifically, the dialogue used in this analysis was presented by the president and CEO. There are 3 statements used as data in this analysis. First, in the message presented by the CEO, the analogy of working in a matrix was referenced a number of times. In his address to the staff team, the CEO stated, "We are using an integrated matrix approach, which is coordinated and efficient." He went on to say that this requires that we stay in our own channels, but are cross-functional in terms of work to be done. Finally, he noted that we are encouraging you to be a leader at your level, but within your fence line of your responsibilities. These 3 statements provide the dialogue for analysis in the inquiry. The confusion regarding the change in culture began in the message of these 3 statements, as well as his overall address sent to the team. An analysis of these statements provides some understanding and conclusions to the specific change and culture and communication around the change. First, the use of the terms and ideas that are shared by the leader and the audience alike is important. The CEO should use terms and ideas that the staff teams are familiar with or thoroughly explain the new concepts and terms, especially as they pertain to the desired change and its influence on the staff team. For example, the challenge with the analogy of matrix is that it was not specifically defined and created much confusion. In addition, the message regarding working in a matrix was contradictory. While individuals struggle with learning what it means to work in this new matrix, more confusion abound because the CEO stated, "We are encouraging you to be a leader at your level, but within your fence line of your responsibilities. It is understood that I have the freedom to seek leadership opportunities, but only at my own level." This data highlights the disconnect between the culture change and the communication strategy used to communicate the change initiative. Members of the team still express confusion around working in a matrix organization, understanding how to communicate with others, and when and how it is most appropriate to step into a leadership role. In his address to the team, the CEO went on to note that this requires that we stay in our own channels but are cross-functional in terms of work to be done. The ambiguity in this statement further perpetuates the challenge in communication as individuals struggle to learn who they align with and how in order to navigate this new structure and get their work done. These challenges have actually stifled productivity, increased issues of communication, and confronted the idea of individuals working together. A dialogic ethic in business and professional communication points to a model of inquiry into communication ethics necessary in change. The first question within a dialogic ethic inquiry is, what is happening in a given moment? Change is happening. The shift is from strictly feeling in the mission to a more data-driven focus. The new focus lacks the emotional narratives that influence the mission, which in turn has a negative impact on the desired shift in values and goods of the organization. One of the last steps in this inquiry is to analyze what worked and what changes might now assist. The reflections upon one's own ethical commitments are important in this stage of communication. Over-communication of change initiative and community forums to gather more information is important so that people will get an understanding of their role in the change. Announcements from the podium by the CEO seem to work for the team members. Yet, the side communication seems to stunt the other. While it seemed beneficial for team members to hear the direction of change as a whole, it is the closed-door communication that leave team members wavering in their commitment to change. Tightening the message and making it more consistent publicly and privately are important measures that might assist in the communication and buy-in of the overall change initiative. The leadership team will have to commit to the over-communication of a clear change strategy that will assist in gaining the buy-in of team members. Attentive responsiveness requires grounding the change in the past and present, being reflective in and to change, and that a few questions are asked and answered in order for individuals to know where they stand in the change initiative. What is happening? What are the coordinating grounds upon which I stand? What are the ethical commitments that guide me in this change? Where I stand historically does not allow me to adequately adjust to this new direction. Therefore, I must understand what is asked of me to make the necessary change. Locating the change historically, the CEO should highlight and build upon the strengths of the existing culture while slowly and methodically introduce components of the desired culture. This shift in culture is then built upon, which allows the transition to become more natural for individuals as they align the older and newer values of change. In addition, the CEO should be specific of the good of the organization and allow individuals an opportunity to align with the good in the change initiative. Again, build on strengths of the older culture to carry the organization into the desired culture change. In conclusion, the commitment to a change initiative that is clearly communicated is learned from the other, the historical moment, and a reflective understanding of the communicative action. In this case, while the CEO and the leadership team may understand the change initiative, they have not done a good job communicating it to the team members overall. Considering the nature of the organization, the good of the mission does not come into question. However, the change in focus around the mission raises a significant question. Corporate communication efforts need to balance the narrative of the mission and the data surrounding the mission. Not only are the targeted young people being positively influenced by this organization, but measurable outcomes point to this positive influence. Balancing the narrative and the data story may prove to be the best communication strategy to the overall change initiative. Providing the overall goal of the change, identifying how teams influence the overall goal, and a clear plan for how teams are to work together to achieve the goal should prove to be the best communication strategy for achieving such a great change while maintaining alignment with the mission overall.